Well, I'm going to ask you each, first of all, of course, to introduce yourself. So, can you tell us a little bit about what you do and what motivated you to make a career in the world of sound, let's say? Um, Maybe we'll start with Jeppe. Can you tell us a bit about the work of the Danish Sound Cluster?
Sure. Well, Danish Sound Cluster is a community of people working in the audio, acoustics, and hearing industry, and which is being supported by universities and educational institutions. So what we do at Danish Sound Cluster is that we unite these people who are working in the sound field, and we bring them together to curate new inspiration, to share experience, share new work with new technology, and and hopefully start new collaborations in between these three fields of the sound community that we're working with.
Wonderful. Yeah. So you're connecting all these players in the world
Yep.
of sound, basically. Yeah. And Tanveer, what's your background and how did you get into the field of audio and sound?
Yes, primarily I'm an electrical engineer in background. I had my PhD in biomedical engineering. I used to work with cardiac signals, heart. There I grew quite some strong interest on using human electrophysiology. And right after my PhD, I started in a postdoc in Oticon, which is a hearing aid. They have the research, strong research on making a very smart hearing aid, where hearing aid can understand your brain, etc. So there I started working with a lot of EEG, brain signal stuff, primarily not directly to the sound, but aiding people to understand, have better perception of speech and surrounding background noise, etc. So that there I found profound interest on how this audio stimuli changes and how different people perceives the brain stimuli differently. After working 6 more years, then I started working in HARMAN. Here I'm also working with a lot of different biosignals and sensors to understand the sounds perception and make it more wearables.
Well, we already have a lot of interesting issues there that we can delve deeper on, hearing aids, how people process sound, etc. But we'll move to Søren. Can you tell us, how did you get into sound and what drew you to that field?
I've always had, the love around music and speakers since I was a very little boy, and then I'm commercially educated, and then later on in the mid-90s, I had the opportunity to write my main assignment for HARMAN whilst I was studying at the Danish Export Academy. And the rest is basically history. I've been there since. So, it is fantastic to work with that HARMAN International conglomerate, as we do everything within audio. And so I've been there plus 25 years.
Yeah, can you tell us a bit more about HARMAN International? Because, like you said, it is one of the most recognized audio brands in the world, and you actually own these brands like JBL that a lot of people use in everyday life. Can you explain the scale and the scope of HARMAN's activities?
Yes, as I said, it is a conglomerate. We are owned by Samsung, and we have under the HARMAN International umbrella the majority of the well-known audio brands globally. And as you said, JBL, Harman Kardon, AKG. And quite recently, we acquired Sound United, and are adding in Denon, Marantz, and Bowers & Wilkins into the portfolio as well, which we're also very proud of. But HARMAN International is you can take it in two pillars. You have the lifestyle, which is consumer goods and the professional goods, and then you have automotive, which is actually the other pillar in HARMAN International. And automotive is what we do, everything of infotainment, intelligent cockpit, and everything inside majority of car fleets in the world.
Oh, wow, that's even much broader than I was aware of. So that's interesting. Let's talk a bit about sound and hearing and sort of the I guess, the responsibility that comes with, the industries that you're representing here. So for a lot of people who live with tinnitus every day, they can have quite a complicated relationship with sound. So, they still, a lot of them enjoy music and want to enjoy music and sound in different ways, but it can also be a source of difficulty. A lot of them have sound sensitivities, or, their tinnitus gets aggravated by certain sounds. Maybe I'll start with Tanveer and ask you how, like, modern advances in acoustic engineering, we're getting smarter sound systems, smarter audio devices from your perspective as an engineer. How is modern acoustic engineering beginning to make some headway into making listening environments like safer and more comfortable for people?
I think that with the modern technologies that are being developed, a lot of things not only delivering the sound to the person, but also we need to take care of how the people perceiving the sound acoustically, also in terms of perceiving the sound in brain. There's a lot of embedded sensors are nowadays available within the hearing devices, primarily with, you could say, headphone or TWS devices. Ideally, what I think is that when people have certain listening condition of this higher sound sensitivity, or people with tinnitus, there's a distinct physiological marker in their brain waves. For example, they have a lower alpha power in EEG, or increased gamma power in EEG, and that those are very easily detectable features that you can get from air level sensors. And then nowadays, a lot of wide range of research going on in terms of minimizing or tackling tinnitus. For example, this transcutaneous stimulation, whether it is a current or it's ultrasound, etc. There and I know that from the literature that not everything is working for everyone. It's always some people with responding to some random noise stimulation. Some are also responding with bimodal solutions. So this is we need to understand, and I agree that we need to be a bit more research at like which kind of treatment works for which person due to its very individualistic nature. So I think with the advancement of technology, of course, detection is nowadays, I think, quite straightforward in terms with the tinnitus patients, and with these solutions, we can soon be able to tackle the tinnitus as well with the sensor technology and of course AI.
Great. We'll certainly delve deeper into where all of this is going. But for now, let me ask Jeppe, do you feel awareness of hearing health in general in like the audio and sound technology industry is growing? What have you observed around this?
Well, I've been at Danish Sound Cluster now for almost 3 years. So to say that it's growing over such a short span is perhaps a bit difficult to say. But I can definitely see that it's very present in the community, that hearing health is something that is important. Obviously, also because that many of our members are working in that field, so that's, it's quite obvious that it's an important matter. But we also, we want to spread awareness in our community, but we also try to reach outside of our community, because that's where we can see our role, where we can sort of push some sort of development is by just making noise about tinnitus.
Great. Well, we hope to see that grow even further. Søren, can I ask you, do you believe that companies like HARMAN have a responsibility to help people address hearing health challenges? And is that a conversation that's sort of happening at a senior level within the company?
I would say yes. It has been quite a journey, actually, because I myself have been suffering from tinnitus for the last, I was 19 and a soldier, so it's 35 years ago. and as soon as I ran into another organization also looking into tinnitus and the development, I was suddenly sitting in front of also this professor who is also sitting in your board, Dirk de Ritter, and found it very interesting where they are in their research and development. And I said, I'm not an engineer, but I would really love to see that we one day will be able to help people, as we also, in a way, with the situation that I'm in and many others. We have a responsibility in a way, because we are actually also going to concerts with big array line rigs, and the music is very loud, and knowing that we are far more educated today to protect our ears. But when I was in my 20s, simply just immortal, you are not really thinking of this, and you're going to clubs and rock concerts all the time, and there was no such thing, protecting your ears. So the ringing tone suddenly takes days before it slightly disappears, and suddenly one day it doesn't disappear, and then it's just there, and that's how it has been. But it was simply a rocket launcher that simply gave my ears a ear trauma, and but you just learn to live with it. There's nothing you can do. You go to your doctor, he says, yeah, well, there's nothing we can do. And here we are, and since we are having so many great technologies, I was addressing this to our senior leadership team, and they find it interesting, and they are approving that we support this and we look into it. And hopefully one day there will be a technology that is giving you a proven relief, because everything you can do with masking, everything that's helpful for some and is irritating for others. But I don't use anything during my daily work time. I always have a radio running in the background, and that's nice because it's my kind of masking. But that's sitting here. I have a terrible noise in my head when it's so quiet here. But it is what it is, and I've just learned to live with it. But I would really, really like to be a test pilot and be the one that can also be helping and find a way. The best way, as when I met Dirk de Ritter, was when he asked me how describe it. The best way I can describe it is in the 80s when you had a tube TV. You don't listen to your tube TV, but you can hear it's on, maybe in another living room. I think they told me that's 25 hertz or something. If you add that with 25, that noise, that's exactly what I have.
Like white noise, kind of?
It is.
Yeah.
And he said that's a very fine description. It's the same all the time. And the older you become, the worse it gets, because you are losing your hearing between 3 to 6 kilohertz, and that's how it is.
Yeah, sorry to hear you also have this personal experience, but thank you for sharing that. And you're right, there are no real solutions. Masking is something a lot of people with tinnitus do. A recording studio is very quiet. I can also hear my tinnitus very well now. Mine is like a high-pitched tone. But yeah, that was actually going to be my next question, whether any of you have been personally affected by tinnitus and hearing loss. So Søren already shared. Tanveer, how about you?
No, I don't have any chronic, but over some time to time with some stress, it really kicks in for some time and goes away. I think this is quite normal.
Intermittent tinnitus.
Exactly.
Okay, yes, that's also fairly common. Yeah, what about you, Jeppe?
Well, I thought I had once, and then I went to a hearing doctor, and he gave me a hearing test, and he said, well, you don't have any hearing impairment, so I don't see that you should have tinnitus. And then it disappeared. So
But this is so common. They're like, but there's nothing wrong with you.
yeah, but having that message given to me made it disappear. So it was very much a psychological thing.
Interesting.
And I can't really remember the where I was in my life at that point, but I was a bit stressed or whatever.
Lucky you, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I also experienced it from time to time, just in short periods, right? I was, when you get up in the 40s, you sometimes have a body that's aching here and there. So I have a body therapist that I visit once in a while, and after a session with him, I said I have tinnitus and I'm ringing all in my head, and he said, "Oh yeah, but that's because I pushed your kidney today." So what he said is that the kidney is related to tinnitus in your head. I don't have any research on this, but that's what he said, and that's what happened. That I had tinnitus in my head, but it disappeared. So it's not the same kind of tinnitus. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that what I also hear when I talk to people in the hearing community is that tinnitus is very many different things.
It is many.
And it can be psychological, it can be physiological, it can be different things.
There are theories that acute or intermittent tinnitus is really something different mechanically or physiologically speaking than chronic severe tinnitus. That those are actually two different things, but they don't know enough, of course, about how it all works in the brain, etc. So yeah, I mean, you probably know then that, so we have a wide audience of people living with tinnitus, how it can affect people, of course, affects people differently, but many people struggle with sleep, concentration, emotional well-being, mental health, their quality of life is really affected. How about the ability of people with tinnitus to enjoy music? So certain frequencies might be aggravating for some people, or volumes. I mean, apart from lowering the volume of the music, which is kind of like an obvious thing, is there anything that could be done to make music sort of a positive experience for people living with hearing conditions? I don't know who I'm asking, but whoever wants to answer first.
I would say it's a very good question, and it's quite a difficult answer, because it very much varies. For me, when I enjoy music, for when I'm in the gym and you have your headphones on, I'm thinking of it. Don't play too loud, but there's a threshold just below where it can actually mask it very nicely, and it's more or less gone when I wear the headphones. So, and it's with noise cancelling as well. But when I'm listening to music, of course, on a great pair of JBL speakers, I have to say that, whilst we are recording.
Yes.
So it's again, it depends on what the sound pressure or the level is.
Well, talking about that, does having like a really high quality speaker, is that then, do we know that that's really better for your hearing than using, whatever, €50 speaker or something that
of course, because it's a matter of distortion, that you when you play a very inexpensive speaker very loud, you don't really notice the distortion, and if you're sitting too close to it, it's simply devastating for your hearing. And these kind of things we were not aware of back in the good old 80s or something, when we were at the clubs. It was just being there all the time, and the music was terrible loud, but that's how it was, and that's also why it's very much for us selling millions of headphones, and you can also get a headphone, a very good one, from €30, but we have a responsibility also telling that it's don't play it too loud, and don't play too many hours. Actually, HARMAN acquired a company, an American company, back in 2010 called MWC, and they were the first in the world developing this technology where you can't play above 85 dB. And that is especially what we are advocating today in our JBL lineup of headphones for kids, because it is super, super important to tell this story. And we have been aware of this for the last 15 years, that even though you can, especially on smartphones today, you can put a blocker on so you can't play louder than 85 dB. However, the headphone will also never accept if you unblock that little feature in the phone if you have these kind of.
So the headphone itself is
never.
limited in that
Yeah.
sense.
So if you go to any toy store and you buy a 19 euro headphone for your kids, it can be very high pitched and distorted.
It doesn't have this protection where it could literally go up to 120 decibels or something insane.
And if they're sitting in the back seat on the way to on summer holiday to Italy, and they have each an iPad and they're watching a movie, they don't think of it because it's just the more relaxed your ear will be with this high sound pressure, the louder you will play. And this is it's really terrible.
It is terrible,
for kids hearing and that's what we need to advocate, and that's what we need to be aware of. So our kids and their kids are aware that it is super important to protect your ears. And the speakers at nightclubs today, they are not better than they were in the 80s. So maybe in some clubs where they are aware, but it's super important not to stay too close
or too long,
or
well.
simply have earplugs.
Of course. Actually, I think anytime you go to a concert, or you should always have earplugs with you. I feel like for me, it always feels too loud. Like, it's very rare that I don't feel the need to like plug up my ears. But then the duration as well, like you said, the kids sitting in the back seat, and if the car drive lasts 6 hours and they're playing all the time,
and the noise from the car and the traffic.
Exactly. Sorry, you wanted to add something?
No, I was just like to add that I think good room acoustics is also very important when you're talking about a healthy sound experience, because I remember being at a sports arena recently where there was no acoustic treatment. It was concrete and steel everywhere. So that made the speakers go, crazy, booming. So what they had to do to get some sort of speech intelligibility was they tuned the speakers in the mid-range, so that you could actually hear what's coming out of the speakers. But it was just a terrible, terrible sound altogether. So the bad room acoustics made them have to tune the speakers in a bad way. So I think it's much more than just a good speaker. For a healthy sound experience.
100%. And for both for the quality of the sound and just the safety, obviously.
It was that was unhealthy for everyone. For everyone, not just the ones with tinnitus, but for me as well. So
Do you have anything to add, or?
I'm just saying that, I mean, what Søren mentioned about this very high SPL, sound pixel level sound. I mean, when people are exposed to this very high SPL sound, at some point this fatigue kicks in, there's brain fatigue kicks in, and that's very prominent in a lot of different part of their brain, like if you look into the heart rate variability, for example, there was quite some studies with people with hearing loss and without hearing loss, with some heart rate variability monitor, and they're saying that the people who are exposed to very high sound, at some point they're so fatigued, their HRV goes quite high. And sometimes also these parameters, for example, this pupil dilation, it goes down because of this fatigue. I mean, all these markers are there.
Are these all like stress responses?
Exactly.
Or what? Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, I'm listening to very high music, I'm enjoying, but my body is not ready to accept, and it's getting more and more fatigued. So I think when the device is intelligent enough with some sensors that can detect this kind of marker, I think it can automatically can bypass that's okay. You know what? You need to stop, lower the volume, etc. So a lot of new technologies are coming in that sense.
That's very interesting that this kind of prolonged loud sound, that it creates this stress response in your body. And even though you might be cognitively thinking, oh, this is cool and I like the music, but actually your body is under stress. Okay, very interesting. Yeah. And Tanveer, can we dig a bit more into like the future of audio devices in this sense? Like, can we get to a point where the device sort of responds dynamically to, your hearing profile? It all becomes like more personalized, so the devices are maybe integrated with your hearing health data, or things like the heart rate, the stress responses that you talked about, that you have personalized devices that actually respond to that. Is that possible?
Exactly. I mean, as I'm just repeatedly talking about all these sensors and stuff. So first thing you mentioned about this hearing profile, I mean, there has been extensive research on and how this, our hearing profile, it worsens over time. And then for the hearing aid users, they go to this dispenser. They get to have this tune different frequency test. Have you heard or not? And this is a subjective response. Recently, it has found that with the brain signal EEG, you can already have this kind of threshold in different frequency level, which is called auditory steady state response from EEG. Like if you have listened something, the brain actually responds with that similar frequency, with that similar tone. So that way, this hearing profile can be automatically adjusted over time and from time to time. There are also some product nowadays that adjust the audio profile based on this frequency threshold method. That if you have listened to certain SBL, that's your kind of level of sound. But that can be fully objective measure without any personal intervention. So that's a very interesting thing, that over the time, this will be always adjusting your hearing profile so that you always get the best experience, not every once in 2 years or something. So that's, of course, quite interesting.
That's really interesting. Yeah. Is this something that's available now, or are we talking a few years from now?
This is something I'm talking about from the research. And that's in the laboratory settings, it has already been shown that they're quite close with traditional hearing profile measurement with the corresponding to the EEG.
That's very interesting. Something that is already available for quite some time is active noise cancellation.
Yes.
I use it myself a lot, but I do always wonder, does it give me maybe some illusion of safety, or does it really protect me? Like, can you explain maybe first a bit how it works, and then what are the pros and cons of that?
With an active noise cancellation, so the way it works, that so in the active noise cancellation headphone, you have two mics. You have a feedback mic in the cup, and there is a outer mic. So in the outer shell, you have some other mics. What these outer mics take is the noise from the environment, and when you listen to music, you are actually listening music plus some noise. So with this outer mic, you take this noise in, and there are some adaptive filters. There's some mathematical way that you flip this noise coming from the outside opposite in opposite sign, so that when you add this noise to the sound music you are playing, so these two noise actually cancels each other, just a simple subtraction. Of course, it's not as simple as I am telling, but that's the inherent technology. Then what you are end up with, just the music. So in that sense, it is actually working that you cancel a lot of environmental noise in that sense. Not only the environmental noise, but also it also because this is some sort of adaptive filter going in, it can adapt to different type of noise. For example, a noise station, you can be in a library, or library is very quiet, but in a cafeteria, a lot of different noise. So in that sense, this is a good protection. It's not only illusion, but it
is real. Yeah. Is it just as good as passive noise cancellation?
No. So passive noise cancellation is primary. This cushion you have, it is actually already obstructing some noise. So that's the passive one. But this active one is doing on top of the passive one. So total noise is this active plus passive, that you can say the total noise cancellation is going on. So passive is not enough in that sense. It can lower these high frequencies, but for the low frequencies, it cannot. So in that sense, you need the active noise cancellation with the adaptive feature, so that it can remove the noise in the frequency range you are listening to.
Yeah, great. Okay, that's very helpful. Thanks. And Søren, at HARMAN, when you develop a new pair of headphones or earbuds, so I'm really talking about like the devices that are here, how does hearing safety feature into the design? Is that something that's thought of early on? How does that conversation go?
It's, again, as mentioned, for the kids' headphone, is very much on the box and within the app and so forth, that they are not playing above the 85 dB. But in every other headphone we do, you as an adult can turn it on in the app, so it never surpasses the 85 dB. So you also have safety there. So, but with all the features and everything else that's inside the app, it's exactly there it happens, and you can do your own equalization, your own adjustment for exactly how you would like to tailor the sound for you, which is very, very cool feature, with or without noise cancelling, but also very important for another feature if you're walking around outside with it or you're on a bicycle, that you have this feature called ambient aware, so you can still turn on and be aware of all the traffic around you and so forth. So you're not completely
closed off. That's also part of safety, I guess, because sound in the end, like, evolutionarily speaking, sound is there to warn us as well of dangerous situations.
It is, and when you have your smartphones, there's when you turn up the volume, you can easily see when it becomes red that now you are surpassing the 85 dB and so forth, and so keep it below that, and then everything is good. But before it's too late.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, these days we cannot get through a single podcast, of course, without mentioning the word AI. So I'm going to ask you the AI question. Is that something that you guys are actively using or integrating to make your technologies better?
I think that's a question for Tanveer.
Okay, then we'll ask Tanveer.
I think that is,
I won't be very specific, but sometimes, we think of AI sometimes like end-to-end. So as an example, like for example, this active noise cancellation you just mentioned, this can be solved either purely mathematically, the way I mentioned, within filter, but again, there are a lot of research just putting a lot of noise in, and you have a very big model that has been trained on different noise environment and clean the noise. So pure AI based noise cancellation. So it can be that we implement AI to tackle some of these issues from end to end without thinking of what's, or another thing would be like some of these building blocks, when we make the algorithm, some of these building blocks can be replaced with AI. In that sense, we have the total control of the algorithm, and then specific blocks has been replaced with AI, then it becomes much more easier for us to understand what's going the internal mechanism. So it depends on, of course, the platform, whether it's already supporting, because with the AI and offline, you can have the best model in the world, but with a lot of weights, and that is not feasible for this processor. It's a lot of optimization problem here, actually.
Tanveer, you've talked already a little bit, but like the interplay between neuroscience and acoustics, you've mentioned neuromodulation, auditory brain research. What is the research that you're most excited about that you think, in the next 5 to 10 years or something that could really give us real meaningful improvements or new solutions?
I think I'm particularly interested in brain signals. So I think a lot of things in EEG will reveal a lot of new opportunities. It's starting from sound perception, stress, tinnitus, for example, and that part of this, the brain signals looks like a very random noise, but that part of random noise, you have a lot of very interesting information in different frequency bands, and that can trigger different solution, even first of all detection, whether you have this problem or not, whether you have a hearing loss in that frequency band, that will also can be looked into EEG signal. Your stress, whether you are drowsy, feeling a driver, having a headphone and driving a car, but you're feeling drowsy, that can also, you can see some sort of signature in the EEG signal. That all these things, it's more like a brain-computer interface that I envisioning that these hearables become at some point.
Cool, yeah. Do you think there is something to using sound therapeutically, meaning for tinnitus, for instance, or because to me it's more at the moment, like Søren describes, it's more like, well, you can use it to kind of mask your tinnitus, right? But it doesn't really like treat the tinnitus per se. Or do you think that's possible in future?
I think, of course, it's possible. I mean, we already know that this is there are some non-invasive way of stimulating the vagus nerve from the skin. I mean, that can be at some point become quite a wearable technology with some sort of headphone with that kind of stimulation in vagus nerve that, if proves to be useful, can serve as a tinnitus mitigation medication at some point.
Great, that would be wonderful. Yeah. Jeppe, from the Danish sound cluster perspective, you talked a bit about you're like at the intersection of these different industries. What kind of collaborations do you think could be facilitated between like researchers, patient communities, sound technology companies to advance our understanding of tinnitus?
Well, that's not a simple question to ask, because I know that there's been efforts to start actually a research project between universities and the companies in the industry, both in the hearing field and the audio field, as far as I remember. But the challenge has been to raise funding, and what I hear as well is that tinnitus is still some kind of riddle to many people. It's unknown, and many people, they sort of frown when you mention tinnitus, because they don't really know what to think or say.
Yeah.
So I think that there's maybe a task there to sort of demystify tinnitus, and to do more of what we try to do. I think we all have a responsibility to raise more awareness about this.
Yeah.
I know it's an often thing to say, but I think raising awareness also about prevention and what is healthy listening. I think that's a big task for all of us. So maybe I don't know if it starts there, but what I can see is that it's difficult to. I know that the collaboration is there. It is established between hospitality, between universities, between the industry. It's already there, and that's one of the reasons that Denmark is so big in the hearing industry. I should mention that the three big hearing aid companies, they sit on a 64% of the global market of hearing aids. So it's a very well oiled machine, so to say. But there's just still so much that is unknown.
It sounds like it's a very early conversation when it comes to tinnitus, which sounds familiar, right? It's difficult condition to raise funding for. People are not aware of it. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's like it's been at that early stage for a while, right?
For too long.
Yeah. So
I know.
So it's what I sort of see and hear is that it's difficult to make those steps forward.
Yeah. Okay. Well, hopefully we can get to something to break through that conversation a little bit. But I recognize the difficulties, absolutely, like the blank stares you can get when you when you mention tinnitus. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Maybe to all of you, look, Tinnitus Quest is a patient-driven organization, right? So we're founded by people who suffer from tinnitus. How do you see patient communities taking, is there room for partnership between patient communities and industry to sort of drive these issues forward? I'm not sure who I'm asking, but whoever wants to pick it up first.
But I would say yes to that. It's a very important topic, and again, there is very little knowledge because the tinnitus I have is absolutely not the same as the one that you have, or maybe not. But that's again, it varies so much, as Tanveer also is saying. So I very much welcome that it's being more and more visible and talked about as a a health problem for so many people around the globe, and something that we hopefully in the future can help, a proven relief that this is really working via this system or this technology would be fantastic to be part of as a company. And this is what I've been advocating inside HARMAN for the last 4 or 5 years, that this is absolutely important, because
that's great to hear. Yeah.
As mentioned before, we have a responsibility. We are guilty in many areas, but we want to be in the front, helping and supporting these initiatives when they are there. And that's why suddenly from other networks, suddenly you're sitting in front of Dick DeRidder and really understanding who he is and what they are developing. As it is, we want to be part of, and hopefully one day we can put it on a platform where we can go out. We're not saying we can cure tinnitus, but we can give it a proven relief, which is very important.
Yeah, it's great to hear that you're having these conversations inside, one of the biggest sound companies in the world. When you have these conversations, I imagine you have to also present a business case, right? It's not enough to just say, well, we have responsibility, it's an important issue. Like, how do you present the business case?
Again, it's absolutely the topic first, and talking to a high-ranking executive in our system that doesn't have tinnitus nor really understand what it is. The best thing is to download the app. You can take a Hertz generator, and then you can start simulating the pitch tone, and then they understand, oh, okay, this is terrible. Is that what you are having inside your head all the time? Yeah, more or less. So if and then you can get the attention, and then, all right, let's, of course, in companies like ours and many others, it will turn out to what can a future business case look like. But I would say let's not go there before the proven relief is starting to mature, and then you can build a business case around who is it actually we want to address here. Of course, people with tinnitus, but how are we going to do it? Is it through normal consumer retail? I would say no. Is it only through the doctors? I would also say no to that. We have to tell the world that this is available, and you can buy it maybe here and there online, or it can be go down to this storefront and test this and try it out. But I think the future will bring that it's inside the app steering system, and when it's on the chipset for the headphones or speaker you buy.
Yeah.
So it's and again, there will be a variety of models for that over ear, in ear, but most important, I would say, sleep, but that is very, very small and comfortable for you. Will it be inside hearing aids at a certain time? Perhaps.
Yeah, but you're saying that the internal conversation starts with simply like raising awareness of helping your colleagues to understand the importance of the issue. Yeah.
So the quick answer is that important? What is it?
Yeah.
It is extremely important. Yeah.
I want to switch gears a bit and talk about, let's say, we've touched on it a little bit, like how loud concerts are, etc. But modern life in general is very noisy. I feel like we're increasingly exposed to sound. Is that something that concerns you from like a societal perspective? That it's just we're being blasted with more and more sound constantly?
I don't know if it's a concern. It's very noisy everywhere, and you need to seek and find if you want peace and quietness. and we know about all this, and we are also guilty there that a very large category inside our JBL portfolio is what we call party boxes. Yes, we know that these kind of things, they are being taken outside, and now you can have your party wherever you want. Guilty as charged again. It's true.
Yeah, because everyone around it gets to enjoy.
We have fun,
and
of course that they must like it because we love it. Maybe not, and so it is more and more noisy.
Yeah,
more traffic, more of everything.
I think that's for sure. Industry has some responsibility, but it's probably more of a regulatory issue. I don't know if that. I assume you guys are sort of following what's going on in in terms of regulations around volume limits, etc. Do you see that also as an opportunity in a way? Because you can, if you can respond more quickly to new regulations, then you have a business advantage in a way.
Of course, there's a responsibility there, and there are laws around this. Take for instance, if you go to a rock concert somewhere outside, Roskilde. No, there's Roskilde Festival.
Yeah, big
they
festival,
play very big festival, and that's they play very loud there, and you need to not stay too close to the speaker towers. But if you go to a concert in Tivoli, yes, there are regulatories around that because Tivoli in the inner city of Copenhagen, you are not allowed to play above 80 dBs, 85. That's how it is, and that
is there for open air festivals. Is there no limitation or?
I know for Tivoli there is because it's in the city. Open air festivals.
Yeah, the festival is about 105, I think.
Yeah, 105.
That sounds loud.
They have that's they can't surpass that on an average.
Average, okay. Yeah. Is Danish Sound Cluster involved in any of these sort of regulatory conversations, or it's more something you sort of follow?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The last.
The latter. Yeah.
But I think also what we're up against here is not just a sound movement; it's a cultural movement, right? Because so we're up against something very, very big here that we can't just change with a way we interact with the speaker. I think the private sphere is not as holy as it used to be. You can sit on the train and talk on your phone. Where everybody can hear what you're talking about. So I think that's just we are behaving differently in all of culture, not just when related to sound and music.
Yeah, that's a good point. And as much as it annoys me, I've noticed some people will play videos on their phone with that they'll just play it on the speaker, and I'm like, what the hell? But still, I will not go up. I'm too embarrassed to go up and say, hey, can you I might have done it once or twice if I'm having a really bad day. But, I feel like we should call each other out on that. That's very rude. Anyway, we are getting sort of close to the end here, and I want us to look forward at what's coming. And I think Tanveer already gave a quite exciting answer to what technologies are you excited about for the coming 5 or 10 years. Maybe I would like to get something from all of you around that. If we look maybe a bit further, even if we look 10, 20 years ahead, how do you think sound technology might evolve in ways that could genuinely benefit people with tinnitus or hearing issues? And I can give you a moment to think about that as well if you want. It's a challenging question.
I would say that hopefully we don't have to wait that long. That there are really proven development in relief technologies that really can be beneficial for people suffering from tinnitus. That would be a dream scenario to be able to really advocate and tell this to the world. Is it 8% of the global population suffering from tinnitus? It's and from there really see the results. And again, as mentioned, we don't talk about a cure. It would be great if you just take on your headphone and it's gone. Wow. And it does something to the vagus nerve, right, Tanveer, that suddenly can give you this relief.
Yeah.
That would be the dream scenario. Hopefully within 5 years.
Okay, I was going to say, it
Yeah.
sounds like you're quite hopeful that could be, closer by than let's
I would
10 to
love
20
to say
years.
3 to 5
Okay,
years.
okay.
That would be, but I'm a sales guy.
Yeah.
I also need to build the case around it.
Yeah.
But when you say 10 to 20 years, that's really different.
Yeah. Okay.
We'll be back here in 5 years.
Yeah.
So what happened?
Yes.
Yeah, what happened? I understand it's always difficult to predict technological advancements, 'cause sometimes something happens that suddenly there's a big jump and then no one could have really predicted it. But yeah, is there anything you want to add, Tanveer, that you find exciting?
Yeah, I think I fully agree with Søren's timeline, 3 to 5 years, that you guys are also doing quite an extensive research on that sense. And it's not, very early stage of the research, there are a lot of things that, it works for some people, not others. And then understanding why it's not working for some group of people is also quite important. That's something we need to keep researching on. And I think I think a lot of elements are already there to detect this kind of absurdity in the this tinnitus or your fatigue, etc. We need to just put it in the right place and make use of things. I mean, all the wearables have this embedded technology. Your body response is also there. It's also a matter of acclimatize this kind of technology. How I should perceive my body signal. And now I see, well, yeah, I'm getting fatigued. I mean, okay, let's stop it. Don't cross your limit. It's one thing, of course. And I think this this is more like in this wearable way of solving this. I also aim that we'll be able to add this kind of feature in this headphone or whatever wearable scenario you can think about to relieve, at least give people a better understanding of what's going on and limiting the tinnitus in that sense.
I think you called tinnitus an absurdity just now, which I really like that terminology. I'm going to remember that.
I maybe
an absurdity of the brain. Yeah.
Yeah, because when you see the definition of the tinnitus, it's without stimulation, it just playing something. I mean, maybe my choice of words was wrong.
No, I like it. It's a phantom sound, but yeah, that's absurd when you think about it. Yeah. Jeppe, do you have anything to add for like the longer term scenario here?
Yeah, I think that one of the things that I sort of think quite a lot about is maybe we should at some point also have a conversation about how we would like to use products, like in general, all of us, like in culture. Are we interested in a world where everybody has something in their ear, and what kind of behavior does that cause? How do we interact with each other if we have something in our ears at all time? It may reduce some disturbance or whatever in your head, but I think that would be interesting to have a conversation about at some point and maybe address.
Yeah, that's a very broad societal issue.
And it's very difficult conversation because the development is moving so fast and the advantages are so easy to see with these products.
Yeah.
But it's also kind of spinning.
Yeah. So how does this technology affect like human interaction is what you're talking about.
Yeah.
That's a very important topic. It kind of answers my next question that I had, which is, what is one thing about hearing health that you wish the general public understood better, or something that doesn't get talked about enough? I feel like this is definitely a conversation that needs to be had more. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that I would like to mention is that hearing health is very much related to social life. to not being lonely, having dementia or other sort of health issues, where hearing health can cause some of these things, because we have a demographic development as well. More of us are getting very, very old. More of us need hearing aids, but still it's very hearing aids are kind of taboo in many places in society. So I would like to break down some of those barriers to make it cool.
Fashion.
Yeah, maybe. But but earplugs, actually, we were talking about that earlier. Hearing protection. Some are actually succeeding at that.
Yes,
at
that's
this point,
becoming more
and that's
cool.
quite interesting. That you actually can use it as a fashion statement, not just look stupid.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, even a few years ago, it was like kind of embarrassing to
Yeah.
have the big foam earplugs in. I have the custom ones, so you don't see them as much. It was good, but now I really don't care if people see it or not. But Søren, what do you think is the one thing we should talk about more in this space?
No, but I agree with Jeppe. It's the behavior around it, and again, it's the taboo around losing your hearing and all this is quite normal, and that will, for tinnitus patients, that would then be it would be more devastating for these people suffering from this. But I think it's, as you mentioned also, where you're sitting in the train talking or listening to a video through your phone and all this. We need to educate better and look up. The smartphone has done a lot of great things, but you can mention as many bad things in cultural behavior. And same thing with this, which is combined, and actually it's coming from the smartphone that you must have your headphones on for your podcast, or your ebook or your music. It wasn't like that if you go many years.
I'm noticing I'm now like always when especially when I'm like traveling, so I'm not, I can't really work because I don't have the space. Like, what am I doing? I'm not reading a book. I have to listen to a podcast. It's like I need that audio input, but I'm trying to become more conscious of it. And like, so yesterday I was having dinner alone at my hotel, and I decided to just have dinner without putting something in my ear. But it was like, I have to like make a conscious decision sort of to do that. But that went so quickly because 2 years ago I would never be thinking about this. So yeah, it's very, very funny experience and how quickly these things are moving. Yeah. Do you guys have any practical tips and tricks to share? Like, Søren, you've talked a bit about, you have tinnitus and how you're protecting your hearing. Is there a specific piece of practical advice, like from your expertise, that you would really advise people to think about?
It's again, it's always easier said than done. You have to live with it, but it's again, if you have your own way of masking, as I mentioned earlier, having the radio on or music. Even when I'm sitting in calls, I never use headphones. I always have a little speaker in front of me instead. But I still have, you can't hear it because the speaker has noise cancelling. But I still have the masking also from behind, that there is some music running in the background. It's not talk radio at all. It's just relaxing music in the background. So for me, that's what I do, and I think that everybody's suffering from this. They find their own way until there is
so better solutions.
A better solution that we.
Yeah.
are very thankful that organizations like you make it something that is now visible, because it's, again, you just get a number and get in line. If you go to your hearing aid doctor and he will just say, but there's nothing we can do, but you can get a hearing aid. So, no, thanks, but no. Yeah. I think I'll wait a little bit with that. Unfortunately, that's how it is, and you can go and get a hearing test like you did, and your hearing, we can see that you are a little you have a dip between 3 and 6 kilohertz, fine. You can get a hearing aids.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's not what you came for, even.
No,
right? Yeah.
no, I was actually hoping that.
Yeah.
Don't you have anything else? No.
Yeah.
Well, then I can tell you something, Mister. We are working on a solution that maybe you one day will advocate, but
Exactly.
that was kind of the
Yeah.
rotation answer back to him.
Yeah. Good. Good one.
So,
Tanveer, do you have practical tips and tricks, not per se for tinnitus, but just like how you engage with sound every day? What would you advise people?
I would say always take care of your hearing health. It has been proven in the study that people who have a hearing loss, and if it's not treated, meaning that not properly hearing with a hearing aid, this auditory cortex over the time reduces, meaning that you are becoming more and more vulnerable in terms of listening. So it's a taboo, of course, in many cases finding a hearing aid, but it actually helps people. And nowadays, I mean, with all these wearables, I mean, with the Apple AirPod, and you can say this is also kind of a hearing aid because they can have your some hearing loss profile. So it's not only the hearing aid, but also those kind of fashionable earbuds are also trying to provide some hearing care. Always take care of your health, hearing health.
and that I
Yeah.
kind of like also that you mentioned that, Tanveer, because we are also developing and actually moving a bit away from the total in-ears of headphones. Of course, it's in the product lineup, but you can also get this with air conduction, a sound clip. It looks like a little earring, and super cool that you can be completely aware everything around you, but you can also still listen to your podcast on Tinnitus Quest and what else we have, and that's nice. And we will advocate these kind of things more in the future. That maybe move them away from just putting them directly into your ear.
Yeah, makes sense.
In order also to protect your ears. So, yeah.
Jeppe, any practical tips and tricks?
I would just like to pick up on what you said there, because that was quite interesting that it seems like we are also becoming over aware of our surroundings with the use of in-ears. We're becoming very much aware of our surroundings, making us by default, putting the earbuds in.
Yeah.
Maybe that's part of the reason more and more young people are actually suffering from tinnitus and other hearing impairments. So I think that maybe I would just remind myself and everybody else, maybe not do it by default. Maybe do it if it's necessary. But having said that, though, I do have one practical tip that I like to use if I'm in an environment that's not nice or healthy and stressful. I always put in like rain sounds and water sounds and recordings I do myself in the nature, because what I've experienced is that nature sounds relieves all kinds of things, and it also masks sound from the outside because it's sort of a white noise thing, and it's that's what I do if I'm in an environment that I don't like.
That's a really nice tip. I'm pretty sure it's been scientifically proven.
It
Maybe
is.
Tanveer knows, or that nature sounds relaxing.
De-stressing.
Yeah, exactly. Great. Well, we've talked a lot about sound today, and people with tinnitus, how they deal with sound. I'd like to give each of you a chance to sort of talk directly to our community, so people suffering from tinnitus. And so what would you say to millions of people around the world living with tinnitus today? Hopefully many of them are watching or listening. What message would you like to share with them from where you sit in the world of sound and audio innovation? And of course, we would like it to be a message of hope, if possible. I think you've all expressed I would say a fair amount of hope here in this conversation today. So that's been good to hear. And I don't know who wants to start. And for this one, maybe so Jeppe and Tanveer, the camera is there. So for this one, it might be good to sort of directly talk to the camera. But yeah, I'll let whoever wants to start.
I think this is a very hard one for me. Yeah, so I don't know if I have that much to say to the people directly with tinnitus. I mean, what I can say is that there is progress being made. There is deeply professional people having an ambition to make better sound for a better living, basically.
Better sound for a better living.
Yeah.
Is that a slogan that you just made up, or
Not that I just made up. Well, what we used to say is better sound, better life.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Yeah, good. Right, Tanveer.
Yeah, I would say that I mean, people with tinnitus, I know that this is quite distressing, and you guys are not neglected. I mean, it's everywhere. In many places, we see quite very strong scientific research is already going on to tackle these issues, understanding why it's happening and what technology can we use to prevent those. We see a lot of sensor technology are there, a lot of artificial intelligence to understand and mitigate these issues, both invasively, also non-invasively. Nowadays, I think we are in that advancement that it will not be very far that we come up with some viable and wearable solutions for tinnitus.
I like that you said you're not being neglected, because that's exactly how a lot of people with this condition feel. Yeah, Søren?
I would look directly into this camera right there, and I would say, hang tight. I'm sitting in the same boat as you are, because as long as I'm working with this great company, and I will for many years, I will advocate and never forget talking about that we must find a relief solution that is absolutely proven to be the best. And I'm a born optimist, and I'm sincerely hoping that this will be done within, we were talking about 3 to 5 years, hopefully before. This is super important. Until then, do your own masking as good as you can, as I do, and take care of your kids. Sorry, shitty headphones is simply just destroying, excuse my language, destroying the hearing. And be aware of concerts and all this. They need to be educated, as I'm educating my own kids as well. Be aware. It's super important. But I'm there, and we will be loud around this. And also, thank you very much for Tinnitus Quest to setting this up, and we're super happy to know you, and that you are doing this to really talk about it, so the world will be far more knowledgeable around this topic, 100%. So it will come. That's the message of hope.
Very strong message. I love it. Is there anything important we forgot that any of you want to bring up?
Don't be too loud, son.
Oh, just a little side note. Actually, our wonderful app for the headphones are actually having the masking of rain and forest and wind and all this that keeps the heart rate down when you're stressed, Tanveer. But you knew that already, right? But that's very nice, actually, when you are sitting in a plane instead of listening to music, that you can listen to the rain or the ocean.
Yes, ocean. Yes. I'm 100% gonna try it now. Yeah, you guys have inspired me.
I have a website you should visit.
Great. I will. All right. Well then, Søren, Tanveer, Jeppe, thank you so much for being here today. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us, yeah.